This Is My Brave is a very special program, and I wanted to just take a minute to tell you how we came to be here together tonight. Actually, John Schuterer, who is in the audience and who heads up the Yavapai County Suicide Coalition. John, why don't you stand, because you're the one that brought this to our attention. Thank you. And John sent me an email a few months ago that talked about This Is My Brave, and he said, you know, this looks like an interesting idea for the Mental Health Coalition. And so I went online, checked it out, connected with Jennifer Marshall, who is the CEO of This Is My Brave, and we had a wonderful conversation about her own story of being a corporate executive, and she was really rising in the ranks, and she reached a point of having a psychotic breakdown. And she was hospitalized, and as she went through her journey of healing, she realized that story. She started a blog, and she was getting enormous reaction to her blog. And so she became very aware of the power of stories. And she started a show in, I believe it was Virginia or Washington, in that area. And that was the first This Is My Brave, to focus on the courage that it takes to be able to stand up and tell your story of the trauma that you experienced and the journey that you've been on to healing. And so Jennifer started it, and it is now a company, and this year there will be 20 programs across the country called This Is My Brave. And so Sedona, we are really thrilled to be able to be presenting it here with our own local cast. And Jennifer has been involved all along the way, and so we do have a videographer who is going to be making a video of this evening's performance, and we will, of course, be, you know, taking pictures and things like that. So this is a first for Sedona, and we are really thrilled. I do want to acknowledge that things like this don't just happen. There are sponsors involved, and so we are really grateful to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, known as NAMI, which has a local chapter. Rose Berner is the executive director, and Rose is here. Spectrum Healthcare Group, which is one of our local providers, as you know. Health Choices Integrated Care, which is also among our local providers, and the NARBA Institute. And they all have helped us financially to be able to bring this program here. In addition to that, This Is My Brave has national sponsors that work with them on a national level that allow them to provide us with various parts of the program, such as a videographer and so on. And so that's Alkermes, Lindbeck, and Talkspace, none of which I think have local offices here in Sedona. But nevertheless, they are working with This Is My Brave on a national level. Wonderful. And so, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our producing artistic director of Red Earth Theater, who also has been the director of this evening's performance. I'd like to turn it over to Kate Hawkes. Kate, thank you.
It's a huge honor to be doing this. I have an opportunity to work with people, playwrights who write stories, but when I get an opportunity to work with real people telling their real stories, and we start out in a crowded room surrounded by costumes and props, sitting around a table with bits of pizza, I really understand the power of storytelling, and this journey for me has been incredible. And I thank them all right up front now. We are going to begin, however, with some music, and the show also closes with some music. There is a song that was specially written for This Is My Brave, and we are really lucky. We have Adalia Tara here, our very own, and she is going to be performing the This Is My Brave theme song, and she will tell you a little bit about it.
So this song originally was written by Sarah Bareilles, so maybe some of you have heard this, and it's become the theme song, and it's the way to begin all of these plays. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash, somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way the words do, and they settle beneath your skin. Kept it on the inside. outside with no sunlight, sometimes the shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. Just wanna see you. I just wanna see you. Just wanna see you. I wanna see you be brave. Just wanna see you. I just wanna see you. Just wanna see you. Just wanna see you be brave. Everybody's been there, everybody's been set down by the enemy, fallen before the fear, done some disappearing, bound down to the mighty. Don't run, stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of this cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you'll let me ride in. Show me how big your brave is. Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. And since your history of silence won't do you any good, did you think you would let your words be anything but empty? Why don't you tell them the truth? Oh, say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. What you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. Just wanna see you. I just wanna see you. Just wanna see you. I wanna see you be brave. Just wanna see you. I just wanna see you. Just wanna see you. I wanna see you be brave. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome to the stage Liz Cornell.
Before I tell my story, I just want everyone here tonight to consider why this event is called My Brave. There is an unbelievable amount of vulnerability that a person experiences each time they share their story. And it must be matched by an equal amount of courage in order to be here on this stage. The men and the women here tonight are some of the bravest people I know. So with that, this is my brave. I will never forget the day that I declared myself a loud, proud, bra-burning feminist. I was only 17. My dad had been trying to convince me that it would be a good idea if I took electives like typing and shorthand, because some executive secretaries made pretty good money, you know? I let him know right off that I did not want to be a secretary. I wanted to have a secretary. And at one point I did. In fact, my office was right next door to the CEO. You have no idea what it was like for me, a small town girl, to arrive every morning, briefcase in hand, to a door with my name on it. The woman who answered the phone called me Ms. Cornell. I had arrived. It was exciting for a while, exhilarating even. Suddenly, my opinions mattered. I was a big fish in a medium-sized pond, and I was getting along swimmingly, thank you very much. Within a short time, though, I was looking at moving to the next level, where the real money was. But after my initial success, I just kept hitting the glass ceiling instead of breaking it. I watched both men and younger, prettier women moving up ahead of me, people whose backgrounds were significantly less than mine. It was distressing, to say the least. I had worked hard, very hard, but it was never enough. And I thought to myself, wow, I burned my bra for this? It reminds me of that quote by Betty Davis about the things you drop as you climb the ladder of success. The first thing I dropped was having a personal life because, well, 10 hours a day at the office just wasn't enough. And no matter how much I did, they wanted more. Next, I dropped my sense of worthiness. I ate lunch at my desk while I typed. I gave up on complaining because, well, I just tried to do my best to soldier on. I stopped getting a weekly manicure and a regular haircut. I hardly had enough time to put on makeup, much less fuss with my do. I even dropped feeling angry because it was just too exhausting. Even though I didn't have time for a nervous breakdown, there was always this dark cloud of insecurity and fear hovering over me. Eventually, I lost my health, both physical and mental. My blood pressure was as high as my depression was deep. I was in a profound state of complete and total burnout. One rare weekend, I was volunteering at a Renaissance fair in the first aid tent. I remember seeing the glint of sun on a shiny surface, and I kept hearing the clank, clank of metal, and I looked up just in time to see the most dreamy pair of blue eyes. There he was, my knight in shining armor, literally, my Calgon moment. And he took me away all right. I spent the better part of the next year being emotionally abused. I was in a constant state of anxiety, but my already tattered sense of self reasoned that it was better than going back to corporate America. Little did I know that the next shiny thing I would see would be the end of his Smith & Wesson pressed against my skull. Luckily, the day ended with just 2 black eyes and a dislocated shoulder. I kept asking myself, how did I get here? I was accomplished, intelligent, and well-educated, but I soon learned that mental illness plays no favorites. For years afterward, I was haunted by post-traumatic stress, and for months, I flinched at every loud or sudden noise. And when I wasn't jumping out of my skin, I was just depressed. It would be easy to say that pulling myself up and getting on with my life just happened one day, suddenly as if by magic. But truthfully, it took time and work, and it took me to figure out what I really wanted and needed. I had to stand up for myself and set boundaries like never before. I went to lots of support groups, and before I knew it, I was running a support group. I read every self-help book available, and little by little, the heavy weight began to lift. Every small accomplishment was a treasure. I was learning things about myself and about life that I never knew before. If there's one important takeaway that I can offer, it's this. If you are, or ever have been, or have ever suffered from mental illness, understand that you are not defective. You are not unworthy. You are not stupid, lazy, pretending, or any of the words that some people will use to describe you. And you are not a victim. You are a survivor. And you're not weak. You're tough. Trust me. Mental illness is not for sissies. And your future is not, let me repeat, not, determined by your past. And there's one last thing. I've always been a risk taker, a sort of leap and the net will appear type of gal. And well, for the most part, that's worked out pretty good for me. So tonight I'd like to challenge you to take a risk. If you are struggling, reach out. Somewhere in the sea of darkness, someone will reach back and hold you tight. Be brave.
Our next storyteller is Megan Aronson.
"21 people in my life died. Yes, 21 in 5 years. And still I said to myself, I can do this on my own. I don't need help. I lived with an active addict and birthed 3 children. I almost died giving birth to one of them. We changed houses 5 times, and my daughter's best friend died at age 5. And we lost our home, and I lost my job, and. Still, I said to myself, I can do this on my own. I don't need help. I kicked him out. My husband. I kicked him out after I saw with my own eyes, finally, how addiction, the beast that it is, had swallowed my husband whole and taken him over. He left, and there I was alone with 3 small children. And still, I said to myself, I can do this on my own. I don't need help. I ran myself ragged, reliving the trauma of discovering his addiction over and over again. I did do it all alone for 3 weeks, and I killed myself doing it. I ask myself now, who was I trying to prove myself to? At last, I asked for help. I asked for it in every direction, and the world seemed to say, finally, we were waiting for you to ask. Help poured in, and because of that, because of seeking and finding help for myself, from counselors to babysitters to legal advocates, somehow I survived. He survived because he went and got help too. And because of that, somehow, in spite of it all, our marriage survived. Just before baby number 4 arrived, the world caved in on me again. Illness after illness came, and then I hemorrhaged and almost died again during the birth. And then I developed a life-threatening postpartum uterine infection. And oh, by the way, did I mention I was diagnosed with postpartum depression? This time, when that voice tried to tell me I can do this on my own, I didn't listen. I talked back instead. I called my family together to a meeting in my living room on my couch, and I told them in words I could barely speak that this postpartum depression had taken me over, made me not want to live but to die. And I said those words that were so hard to say. I need help, please. And you know what they said? Okay, whatever you need. I took their help at first, but then I began to feel like a burdensome weight, like I used up my quota of loving kindness, as if there were a limit to how much I could take. So again, I said, I can do this on my own. I don't need help. I became my own doctor, took every supplement Dr. Google prescribed. I tried meditating, reading books, writing therapeutically, but all I did was dig myself a deeper hole to hide in. I had crippling anxiety, intrusive thoughts, insomnia, heart palpitations. I suspected I was suffering from PTSD, but I didn't know how or where to get help. By the time I finally went to a doctor, I was hanging on by a thread. He tried to help me, but it was too late. 1 year ago, almost exactly, I started having seizures, sometimes more than 30 a day. I just came off an episode of 9 days straight of them, about a week ago. Test after test said it's not epilepsy. The doctors called them psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, my body's way of expressing the trauma of my past. They said, go get help, real professional help. And so I listened. It took everything for me to finally break down and try an antidepressant, but for me it was the right thing. And eventually anti-anxiety meds. My therapist said they were like vitamins for your brain. Getting on them was horrific, but after a few weeks, I started to feel capable of life again, of hope again, and joy. And I cried, why? Why did I let myself suffer for so long? I called a psychologist and set up cognitive behavioral therapy, and we dove right in with 2 sessions a week. He encouraged me to try yoga, so I did, and my life continued to improve dramatically. I joined Al-Anon, and I found my people, a community to hold me up, while I recovered from the effects of alcoholism and addiction on my life. Then last month, 8 years after the first year of trauma, after another debilitating round of seizures, I finally asked my therapist for an official PTSD diagnosis. I knew it would be hard, but I sensed that knowledge was power. All the other times, my enemy had a face, a name: addiction, depression, anxiety. I needed to name this beast too, so I could conquer it. The enormity of my trauma was so much to witness. My therapist joked back tears again and again throughout. But each question he asked me repieced a puzzle of myself. And in the end, I felt like the last pieces of the puzzle were put into place, and I could finally see the whole picture clearly, see myself clearly, be seen and heard by one other human being clearly. And I felt relief, release, even joy and empowerment. Now, I had named the beast. It is part of who I am, but it is not who I am. It is part of why I am the way I am, but it does not have to define me. It is only one piece. Everything's always changing, and so am I. When you join a 12-step program, they say you've begun recovery. I believe that we're all always in recovery from this crazy, brutal, beautiful thing called life. And if we want to survive, the bravest thing we can ever do is ask for help. What is help? It's allowing someone in close enough to mirror me back to me. If you haven't found your people, go hunt them down. Or build a tribe of your own, because none of us were meant to do this being human thing alone. I'm here today, standing before you, because I asked for help. And even when it was difficult and I felt so alone and it was so hard, I reached out again and again. I survived postpartum depression, anxiety, my husband's addiction, He's 4 years sober. And now I am living through PTSD and seizures, and that's okay. I am and always will be a recovering everything. And isn't that a miracle? Because now that makes me a part of your community too. Thank you.
Our next brave person is Susie Brighten.
I was 3.5 years old, in bed sleeping. My mother and newborn sister were in the hospital when suddenly I woke up as I telepathically heard my mother screaming, "Get me out of here! Get me out of here!" I was 3.5. What can I do? They were giving her shock treatments because she freaked out before and after my sister's very hard breech birth, which was feet first. She thought she would die, and no one told me about it until I was 17. When they came back home, I wanted to help my mother but didn't know how. She was different somehow, and nothing I did helped. I felt like I lost her, yet there she was, and she cried and was sad a lot. She was like a little injured bird who couldn't fly, overly sensitive, shut within herself, afraid of everything. Not the same mother at all. Dad became easily angered at me. He yelled at me and spanked me a lot, sometimes way too hard, like when I couldn't sit down for 3 days. I was frightened of him, angry at him, and loved him all at the same time. Sometimes I hid. Twice I tried to commit suicide before I was 12 under the pillow and under the covers. Nature became my safe place. None of us were ever the same again because we were all connected by energy cords, so we all experienced the effects. Years later, while receiving a healing session, I saw that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't responsible for my dad's anger and my mom's sadness. It was the doctor. I laughed and cried for 20 minutes and couldn't get out of my chair. At 51, I got attacked in my neighborhood park by a rageful man who was raping women in another park. I screamed and didn't let him do what he wanted to do. He let go and ran away. I was now terrified, crushed, and broken, feeling fearful even in nature, my safe place. I called the helpline, got some help, then separated from my angry husband, lived by myself, and started healing by drawing and being in the garden. I realized that I had negative, reactive patterns that attracted this, angry husbands, and other experiences to me, and that life was a mirror of what was subconsciously inside. I had to confront my own anger at these events and people to free myself. So I dove deeply into my darkest, deepest feelings. I found lots of them, and some from ancestors and past lives stored within my cells and DNA. I became a stronger healer, studied many more modalities, got lots of healings, and did lots on myself. Christ appeared and blessed me several times. I did whatever I could to master my mind so it would stop spinning the thoughts and emotions into me. Sometimes I distracted it by focusing on something beautiful. I felt stronger and stronger within my inner power as I healed with my father and others. One day, I realized that my mom saw dark spirits at the hospital who influenced the doctor to do those shock treatments. And that's why she freaked out and why my sister didn't want to come out, which she told me years later. The spirits affected and attached to us all. As I became a shaman and a minister, learning more and more about them, I freed myself from them and lost my fear of them. I also found my mom's missing soul part there and returned it to her. That's why I felt like I lost her. When my mother died about 11 years ago, I suddenly felt very deep, unexplained anger. 3 years ago, I had a shocking revelation of my history of being a German Jew who was gassed by the Nazis at the age of 12, and how that mother's decision affected me in both that life and this life. It explains so many things to me, including why I chose a German father to care for me in this lifetime, as last lifetime Nazis killed me. As I witnessed my Jewish mother's death, I saw her and others dying before I did in the gas chamber, and I got extremely angry at the betrayal by the Nazis and by that mother's decision to do what she was told, and by turning down the loving German neighbors who wanted to help us. That anger came with me into this life as karma, as my inner war, if you will, that magnetically attracted suffering. One of the telepathic messages I got years ago was, "So what?" I taught myself to recognize my body's subconscious feelings of reaction to anyone or anything, and to surrender them, or to dive deeply into them to find the core of where they came from. I also did hands-on healing and what is called toning on myself to break through that core energy stuck within me. I also play and tone high vibrational music. Part of my journey to healing has been my 40-year study of the spiritual emergence of the soul that is happening worldwide. And through that, I have come to understand past lives and ancestral traumas and how they affect my mind and emotions today. Weeks ago, very deep feelings surfaced while watching the movie The Zookeeper's Wife, where Germans saved about 300 Jews. It subconsciously stimulated man's inhumanity to man again. I left Harkins, went behind the theater, and dove into my feelings to uncover what was happening. I suddenly heard the words, I'm free," as my body's consciousness felt liberated from that Jewish lifetime. By feeling both extreme polarities of the great Nazi evil and the great love of the zookeeper angels at the same time, the ego's anger and judgment energies dissolved and shot out of my body. It was liberated. I was filled with love for the souls on both sides of the war, who were all harmed by that karma. And I was also liberated from the polarity of my ego's inner war. Now I can even more fully express my true nature, my soul essence of light, joy, and love that I also found in this deep spiritual emergence of my soul.
I'd now like to introduce you to Laurie Morrison.
She must be crazy. Well, imagine that. Perfectly normal me, crazy. I guess I had crossed the line of ordinary reality. I saw things that others did not see. I heard voices that no one else could hear. I could speak without speaking, and the spirit world flourished around me. I was living in a world of spirits, synchronicities, sounds, and souls. I was one with the universe, and I was crazy. As I entered the mental ward, I was taken to a room where it would be determined what kind of abnormal person I was. The questions began as the intake nurse started to fill out my form. Hearing voices? Check. Seeing things that are not in the ordinary world? Check. Reacting to the unseen world? Check. All the information was gathered to obtain a label that I would wear the rest of my life. As behavior after behavior was examined and the boxes were checked, I was getting closer to a final verdict on my disorder, which would stigmatize me most likely as mentally ill. On the shelf were the mental health Bibles, the diagnostic and statistical manuals of mental disorders, all full of behavioral descriptions and labels. Choosing one or several, in my case for me, would be the mechanism that would launch a psychiatric plan. These labels would be required by my insurance company to cover my costs of care and prescribe antipsychotic drugs. The purpose of these medications would be to shut me off from the sensory world that was obviously overwhelming me. My head was in my hands, realizing that I would need to accept this fate as I was becoming a label. I knew I wasn't crazy, but unfortunately my culture and my society thought otherwise. In our culture, abnormal is labeled, and it's treated. Treatment would be telling me the voices did not exist. I was only hearing things. Another doctor arrived and glanced at the clipboard that had the words borderline schizophrenic with a big question mark on the margin. He asked if I was hearing voices. I now realize hearing voices was not a good thing. It was best to backtrack some of my previous answers when I had told the truth and said yes. I paused. Yes, I hear voices, but only when I have my iPod on. And I smiled. The grin on his face told me that I would avoid a deeper dose of medication. So who was I now that I had awakened from this human amnesia of the existence of a spirit world? Why could no one else see the extraordinary energy matrix that surrounds all of us? The pulsating field of possibilities, this cosmic grid that's waiting for us to manifest everything that we want, as long as we believe in it. My questions would have to wait. I was now redefined. This would be the moment that the successful New York investment banker, international entrepreneur, compassionate caregiver, recently widowed, fun-loving human being would be no more. I was now suffering from something. The labels were plenty for me: psychic break, nervous breakdown, even though I wasn't nervous, bipolar, borderline schizophrenic, and severe PTSD, and dissociative behavior. Did those labels really capture the essence of who I was at that time? Really? Deep, I went into the mainstream of psychiatric care. I got stuck in a societal solution that cuts us off from spiritually awakening and then lures us into normal with the pharmaceutical cocktail. When I was finally able to abandon the conventional plan to deal with my unconventional reality, I began the road to recovery. I walked out of the psychiatric formula to seek those on the fringe of solutions to heal a fragmented mind. 2 women appeared in my life like angelic beings, but they were real. They became my mentors to the spirit world and saved my life. Deborah was a well-seasoned psychic, and Marilyn came from several generations of shamanic healers, all from Haiti. They became my circle of sages, wise women with their feet in both worlds. the worlds where I existed. With them, I found acceptance of what I was seeing and found there was room for seeing the world differently. They welcomed my insanity as part of a bigger process of awakening into a place where I truly belonged. There was an embracing of my story now and great meaning in what was happening to me. My insanity instead was now a sacred journey. It was the dark night of the soul. It was finding myself, and it was a shamanic initiation. On this alternative journey, I was valued again for the gifts of being me, the odd me now. When I realized I was not suffering, I wasn't suffering. I was being called to be in a world of love and compassion for myself, a place of spirituality. My little soul had just been trying to emerge out of layers and layers of other people's attempts to define who I was. I had been a nut in a well-prepared Greek dessert, baklava. Sweet with honey, but smothered with inconsistent layers of conditioning from a culture that did not understand the process I was in. I was a caterpillar in a total state of destruction of the old self. With kindness and the understanding of my journey into a metamorphosis, I emerged better, wiser, stronger, and free. No labels, no diagnosis, no suffering from, no abnormal behaviors. I had just become the extraordinary me.
And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Larry Rosenberg.
The girl that I marry will have to be as soft and as pink as a nursery, a girl I call my own, will wear satins and laces and smell of cologne. At the age of 5, I sang that song to a club of cousins in Philadelphia. The lyrics you just heard contributed to my early sexual confusion. My mother was grooming me to fall in love with a princess. But from an early age, I desired to be close to a prince without his clothes on. As a preteen, I knew I was different than the other boys. Didn't know what to call it. My feelings about wanting to be close to them felt unnatural. I was ashamed of myself. And I was afraid to say anything to anyone. I grew up Jewish and was active in my religion until 16. By then, I had admitted to myself I was gay. I imagined God judging me for having sinful thoughts, even though I hadn't done anything yet. It was like God was admonishing me. If you're gay, you will pay. During my teen years, I felt a strong attraction to masculine guys. Every day I imagined approaching one of them to express my desire to enjoy sex. Next, I'd picture him cursing me out, punching my face, and breaking my glasses. From high school to graduate school, I put all my energy into getting good grades, and I got them. Meanwhile, my sexual hormones were roaring, but I was too intimidated to come out of the closet, even peek out. I earned a PhD in marketing at 26. in order to obtain a university faculty position. Then I'd have power, prestige, and protection. Then nobody would say that Professor Rosenberg was gay to my face. My first job was teaching at New York University in Greenwich Village. While I was tempted to visit gay bars there, I dared not. I was terrified that I might meet some of my students. Keeping my secret was undermining my peace of mind, virtually my mental health. I was in and out of mild depression, and I fantasized suicide, jumping from my apartment's 14th story balcony. So I went into psychotherapy with 3 sessions a week. As my confidence grew, I risked entering gay bars, where I met desperate guys just like me. But my mind could not imagine society seeing me in a gay relationship. So I flipped. I chose to date and romance women. I married the second woman I was intimate with. During our 4 years together, I pretended to be straight. But my wife eventually picked up my mixed signals, and then she divorced me. I was crushed, but also relieved. In my confusion, I had a series of affairs, alternating between men and women. It wasn't until my late 40s, when I was working and living in Tokyo, Japan, that I pursued relationships only with men. How did I finally heal my suffering about my sexual identity? It was in my 60s, I'm 74 now, when I realized that the price I was paying of a life of conflict and despair was way too high. My physical health was deteriorating, my mental state unstable, and my soul just an abstraction. My life started to improve when I committed to practicing yoga and receiving energy healing. I learned how to release my beliefs that were no longer serving me. I accepted myself just the way I am, and even learned to love myself so that I could better love other people. And I entered the fast lane of spiritual study and practice. By then, I was living in Sedona, where nature's awesomeness and a conscious community nourished my soul's growth. I immersed myself in the wisdom traditions of universal spirituality. All is one. Divinity is within me, and I am the creator of my life. From this new higher consciousness perspective, becoming gay no longer defined me and thus no longer troubled me. Then in 2014, after 3 years of singing lessons, I had an epiphany. I wanted to become an entertainer so I could dramatically share the wisdom I had acquired during my 7 decades, especially regarding my identity struggle. My inner child had finally come out of the closet, so I could feel unbounded joy every day. And I created one-man musical comedy shows, which have been healing me every time I rehearse and perform my detailed gay story. Now, having presented my shows 27 times in America, Australia, and Scotland, I am 98% healed of the fear, shame, and self-judgment that my darkest secret had been fueling. Sharing my inner truth, as I'm doing right now, on stage and in public, has set me free. My internal gay conflict no longer rules and ruins my life. I've liberated myself from the beliefs that my family and society had programmed in me. And I realized that it's never too late to tap into my passion, follow my purpose, develop my God-given gift, and create my legacy, helping others, gay, straight, or whatever, to heal, to grow, and to share. I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look, give me the hook or the ovation.
Our next storyteller is Ashley Brothers.
I grew up in a home with a severely mentally ill and abusive mother, a father who was often gone on business trips, and an angry, dysfunctional sister. Everything had to be perfect. I was not allowed to get dirt on my clothes, a scratch on my shoes, or a fingerprint on a glass. Any of those resulted in abuse. Mom told me that I was a fat, ugly, worthless piece of shit and wished I was dead. She would wrap her hands around my throat and squeeze, push my head under the water in the bathtub, and dig her nails into my arms until they bled. I learned to be a ghost in my own home. When Mom couldn't find me, she went after my boisterous sister, and I could hear her screams in the basement or clear outside where I huddled next to the house. In her resentment, my sister often punched me and called me names. I was put on Slim Fast in 4th grade and forced to jog and do sit-ups until I threw up. By the time I reached high school, I was a whopping 85 pounds. But my mother said I was still fat, so I gave up. I was bullied in school because I had a poor stress tolerance and I cried all the time. The night I woke up to my sister's piercing scream as mother beat her into a corner behind the toilet for getting makeup on a washcloth was the night the lion in me broke its chain. Determined to escape hell, I graduated from high school a month after I turned 17 by going to high school during the day and community college at night. On the drive to college, Dad asked me why I was so driven to leave and was utterly devastated when I told him what Mom did to us while he was gone. He divorced her 6 months later, and when she discovered that I was the reason he left, she threatened to kill us both. I sat in my dorm room that day and I made a vow that I would never forget. I swore that my mother's legacy of abuse would die with me, that I never would have love or a family because I never wanted to treat anyone the way that she had treated us, and that my greatest gift to humankind would be to never procreate. Over the next few years, I worked in group homes with severely developmentally disabled adults that were extremely violent. I had been punched, kicked, bitten, my hair pulled out and my clothes torn off. I also had the privilege of being married to a man that abused me every way there is. He referred to me as slut or whore instead of by my name, and I ended up in the ER many times because of the damage he inflicted on me during intercourse. He lost me the day he let his dogs eat my birds and my cat and forced me to stand still while they licked me, still covered in kitten blood, and said, "These are your babies." But I left him at 3 a.m., December 17th, 1999, in the middle of a snowstorm. A week later, Mom died in her sleep, and my sister and I inherited our childhood house of horrors. I was 250 pounds, and I spent the next 2.5 years sleeping, eating, smoking, and drinking my life away in the very same bed Mom died in, praying the angel of death would come again and end my suffering. I hid in the back of a closet, rocking back and forth, punching my legs, biting my wrists, and smashing my head into a wall. I was unable to tolerate the sound of a human voice or the touch of a human hand. It was getting into a car accident that inspired me to ask my doctor to refer me to a psychiatrist. I was first diagnosed and treated for depression, but the drugs they gave me made me so manic, they said, "Oh, she must be bipolar." When I admitted to hearing voices and seeing ghosts all my life, many of which had saved the lives of many of my family members, they gave me a side diagnosis of PTSD and schizophrenia. I was put on so many drugs that I was a numb, drooling mess that was barely able to work or drive. But my entire world changed for the better the day I went for a tarot card reading, and the woman asked me if I knew I could speak to the dead. Hello. She gave me the card of the woman who would eventually be my first shamanic healer and teacher. Within several months of my first healing, I was able to get off all medication, drop 100 pounds, start massage school, public speaking, and the shamanic training that would come to save my life when modern medicine left me to die. In November 2005, I had 2 cysts removed from my right ovary. The recovery was slow, and I found a large lump in my left pelvis. My spirit guides told me that my life was in danger, so I refused to leave the doctor's office without an ultrasound, even though they tried to brush me off. In June 2006, they removed my left ovary, 2 grapefruit-sized masses containing a forgotten sponge. And they surgically separated the rest of my organs that had fused together because of nearly 8 months of an infection. I was put on high levels of hormones to prevent cysts from forming, but I experienced such severe mood swings I had to quit my job. I was forced to undergo a psychiatric evaluation to determine if I was of sound mind to make my own decisions. And I passed. 8 months later, I lost my entire reproductive system, and my other organs were surgically separated again. As if that wasn't enough, 8 months after that, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath. I had a rare form of vasculitis, but I was refused care by over 40 doctors because I was in the midst of a medical lawsuit. They tried to convince me that my test results were normal and that my symptoms were entirely psychological. I was pissed. when I ordered my records and found that I actually had 4 hernias, a collapsing intestine, a twisted bowel, ulcers, gastritis, adhesions, nerve damage, and a rare autoimmune disease called Takayasu's arteritis that destroys your arteries and your aorta, cutting off the blood flow to anything they're attached to. I ended up with countless seizures and 16 miniature strokes. I was refused care in 3 states, so I turned to my shamanic training. It was my spirit guides that taught me how to turn off a terminal disease by changing to a grain-free, sugar-free vegan diet, which incidentally improved my mental and emotional symptoms significantly. Those same spirits taught me how to cut off the strokes by packing my left side in ice and eating 4 chewable aspirin when an attack started. They taught me how to turn off my seizures by eating a high-fat, high-magnesium diet. Unfortunately, I still had to write my will and prepay for my own cremation because by that time I had lost most of the blood supply to my limbs. My urn and thank you cards for attending my funeral came 2 weeks before my spirit guides led me to the doctor in Minnesota that was willing to save my life. You wouldn't know by looking at me that the blood supply to both of my legs, my left arm, and my brain flow through synthetic tubes made of Gore-Tex and Decron. I relearned how to read and do math, to use the left side of my body again, and to eat solid food after drinking it for 3 years because of gastroparesis. You wouldn't know I had no recognition of my friends, coworkers, and clients, my belongings, or my own reflection for 2 years until one of my shamanic teachers did 2 healings on me. So although that vascular surgeon ultimately saved my life, it was the indigenous approach to healing that cured me and taught me how to sense and shift the types of energies that create imbalances that lead to physical and mental illnesses. It empowers me to know that I can adjust and balance my energy through diet, exercise, prayer, and healing techniques. I still get anxiety, but even a bad day is a good day because I am just so grateful to be here. Constant prayer and communication with my spirit guides has kept me alive through decades of hell. So you can call me crazy. You can call me mentally ill. I don't care. Because I call myself a living, breathing prayer. Thank you.
And I want to welcome Marita Gale.
This is my brave story told with nuggets of gold. I ask you to please hold every word in your heart, for each word plays the most important part in who I am today, creating, living, and forgiving in every way. Caught off guard, bit hard, nowhere to go. Let the blood flow, watch it turn black. No turning back. What's done is done. Rape or dog bite is just no fun. Teaching me to be on guard from now to eternity. The chances I take, no mistake. Life is hard when I'm on guard. Lesson learned, don't get burned. Learn to trust, I might just soar beyond my pain. No more insane. One I shall be. I trust in me. Knowing I'm okay, today I choose to play. The forces within are here to spin your life out of control, returning you to the whole of who you are, a bright, amazing, shining star. Thoughts of suicide traipse through my mind. I thought I left that past so far behind. But here it is in my face, left by the trace of flesh lost and gone. Who is right or who is wrong? All I know, suicidal thoughts help grow my spiritual path, or so they say. I'll just let myself be, whether or not I'm free from thoughts of suicide traipsing through my mind, so close, not far behind. I say to you, what do you do with all this chaos inside of you? I say to you, do what you will, experience the chill and the thrill of fright. Discover your power, your might. Instead of flight with lemons in your sight, create lemonade instead. Embrace all those voices in your head. Know you are better off alive than dead. All my children come out to play. All my children have a right to say how they feel and how they deal with rape or a dog bite on their lips. No matter how many trips it takes or how many shakes I endure, sharing my feelings is the cure. So away I go with the flow. All my children come out to play, helping me through each day. All creatures, great and small, stand tall among my pain, washing away stains of the day, licking the wounds off my face with grace. All creatures, great and small, here to serve us, one and all. Inside out, round about, in we go, no need to know. Take it slow. Inside out, no need to shout. We're still here, loud and clear. Broken were we, what set us free? The truth, of course, answers the horse. And away we go, nice and slow. Inside out, our truth be told, as priceless as gold. Raging with the wind through my darkest night, endless plight, sucked down a hole, nowhere to go, creation no more. I, a simple whore, walk out the door and create a new life. I am free as can be, returning to sanity. Creation begins again, helping me put an end to the days of my past, believing I was just a whore. I walk through another door, experiencing respect and so much more. There was a crooked man who lived in a crooked house, raped his child, who became like a mouse. One day soon, a cow jumps over the moon. Another day, it wasn't too soon before, a dish ran away with the spoon. I was that child, left alone, covered in stone. Today I am free of all my uncertainty. A hero I am, changing my name, removing all shame and blame from my past, as I cast off my old shields and walk in fields where lilies bloom, plenty of room to be simple and free. Out of the gloom come roses in bloom, leaving plenty of room for love to grow. What I reap, I sow, so I choose to forgive and let go, reminding myself who we all are, bright, amazing, shining stars. It is my time to cry. It is my time to fly. It is my time to be heard without saying a word. My presence is enough. I don't have to be so tough. I am as gentle as can be now that inner peace has come to me. It is my time to cry, tears of joy shining on my face as I surrender and receive the most amazing grace. Life is a dance when I take a chance. Trust in someone, take time for fun. In and out, roundabout, time does tell, reveals the swell, bellowing in and out. No need to shout. I hear the silence in my heart. I take part and dance with life, no more strife, simply bliss. Why miss this? I love you.
And I want to welcome Tyrus Watson to the stage.
I am an artist and a healer. I have an inspirational sharing card game business that is growing and expanding. I enjoy juggling, fire dancing, and other artistic endeavors. I'm in a men's group where I help to facilitate men's work. I'm starting to give life coaching sessions, and I love to travel. Without a doubt, 2016 was the best year of my life. And so far, this year is even better. Last year, I did 3 weekend trainings with my men's organization. I took a life coaching course. I went to 5 art events, including Burning Man, and spent a week on a houseboat on Lake Powell. Over 20 events while building my business. I did all of this while sleeping most nights in my truck or tent. No home, no cell phone, with very little money. I've been living out my truck for the most of the last 13 years. I had become sensitive to homes, smart meters, cell phones, and people. Until last year, I didn't have enough energy to do all this. I went in the Navy when I was 17, and I never should have been there. I should have had a mental evaluation to be in nuclear power and on a submarine. Twice, I missed getting an evaluation that would have surely disqualified me. After life became really stressful, I got out of the Navy early with a personality disorder diagnosis. I struggled for years to have enough money to work, but I did manage to save up money and took a trip to Australia and New Zealand for 5 months. I had an amazing time. Perhaps that trip saved my life. For when I became suicidal later, I would think of that trip and try to believe that I could be happy again. A few years later, after returning from a stressful year with my girlfriend in Switzerland, I became very sick and suicidal. I decided to do whatever I could to get better, because I could always kill myself later. I had chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. I was so sick I could hardly get out of bed. I dreamt of the day that I would have enough energy to stand on the street corner and beg for money. I got turned down for food stamps. I did manage to get 30% disability when I was obviously 100%. I decided to fight for my health and for my life instead of fighting for my disability. I had suffered quietly for most of my life. I had daily anxiety from before I was 5 until last year. I knew I was different and worried a lot, but until recently, I didn't think that I had a mental illness. As well as anxiety and depression, I've had a multitude of different physical symptoms: aches and pains, fatigue, insomnia, headaches, daily back pain, sensitivity to lights, noise, people, food, and more. I've also had CPTSD, and I realized that I have ADD. And every day, I would read something positive and healthy. Every day, I would do something to make my life better. And as my health problems showed up, I searched for answers, and I found them. I have overcome codependency, addictive behaviors, anxiety, and depression. I have eliminated triggers, releasing mental and emotional blocks, and healing the physical symptoms. It took me 10 years to heal my adrenal glands. And I am a survivor of family abuse. For several years, I spent $400 a month on organic food and about $200 on supplements when I didn't have enough money to pay for a place to stay. For years, a $10 purchase was a large purchase for me. Last month, I worked full-time for the first time in years. And I was not exhausted at the end of the work week for the first time in decades. The last few years, I've cried a lot. There's been months at a time when I cried every day. I've cried in grief of what I've lost. I've lost everything except my truck. I've lost my family because they all have similar issues. I've lost friends, homes, relationships. Years ago, my girlfriend had an abortion because I couldn't support myself, let alone a family. I lost my dreams. And I've had tears of joy for being alive and for being healthy, for having a second chance for life, a chance to make up for all the missed opportunities. My challenges have made me into the person who I am today, and for that I am truly grateful. I'm grateful for being alive and for being healthy. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome to the stage Tiffany Howard.
The light within the darkness. In January of 2015, the bathtub in my sister's apartment where I lived was being repaired. We were told that we wouldn't be able to use the bathtub for 2 days. I decided to go stay at my mama's house. I thought this would be the perfect opportunity for me to kill myself. No one knew that I was experiencing the dark night of the soul. I was good at putting on a happy face for those in the audience who were anxiously watching to see what I would do next. I had decided to take rat poison. Why did I want to kill myself? I believed I didn't matter to anyone in the world. My mind had convinced me that I was useless. If I didn't matter, then there was no reason for me to be alive. I was a lawyer, an idealistic lawyer. I believed in truth and justice and integrity. But I found all of that to be an illusion. I believed that judges were fair and impartial. I believed that cops wouldn't lie. I believed that the system was moral. I was naive. A lawyer whose ideals were slowly ripped from her. Maybe I watched too much Perry Mason and Andy Griffith as a child. So when the reality of the law didn't match my idealism, I became depressed. The depression led to my awakening. My awakening led to the releasing of my law practice. The releasing of my law practice led to my death and rebirth. As a child, at the age of 3, my daddy would tell me that I would be a lawyer someday. Being a lawyer became my personal identity. If I were not a lawyer, then who was I? I thought, useless. On that transformative day in 2015, I called my best friend, San, to tell her goodbye. That I was going to kill myself because I didn't matter. She cried with me and asked me not to do it. But I told her that I had made up my mind this time. This time was much different from the last time. The last time was in 2012. Then I wanted to die because I realized that I was a lesbian and in love with my law partner, a girl. I thought that the love that I felt came from outside of myself, from her. So when we broke up, I became depressed and suicidal. I thought my love was gone. No love, no reason to live. But the Sedona Mago retreat in Cottonwood taught me meridian tapping, and tapping helped to save my life. This time, in 2015, it was Eckhart Tolle who helped me and helped to save my life. I said goodbye to my friend San as I put my cell phone down on the nightstand next to my mama's bed. I picked up the rat poison. At that moment, I heard a ting on my phone. Something made me check my phone, a feeling, a spark of light within, something. It was Google letting me know that I had a new Eckhart Tolle video. Again, something that I can't explain. Something within me made me watch the video. Eckhart discussed how we are not our personal identities. We are greater than what we do and who we are. He said that when our belief of who we are doesn't align with reality, we fall into darkness, and our pain body feels separate from its creator, and we lose consciousness. Holy shit. This was me. I resonated with what he was saying. I was having an unconscious moment. I thought that who I am is a lawyer, and if I was no longer a lawyer, then I was nothing, useless. Wow. In those unconscious moments, the pull of the darkness was so strong. But even during those temporary moments in darkness, there was always light. The light never left me. The light never leaves any of us. My soul wanted to live, so I let in the light. Now, if any darkness appears, I'm able to recognize it, acknowledge it, and let it go, because I know that the darkness is a reminder that there is light on the other side.
My name is Serena Abudi. I have depression and PST. I sink so low sometimes that I feel paralyzed, stuck in cement, black clouds surrounding, tears rising up from that wretched, sad place. The depressive state began as early as 6 years old, maybe sooner, I don't know. The biggest challenge then was just staying alive. My older brother was physically and verbally abusive. My response was to fight back, run and hide, scream for help. It was a family secret. What would people think? People used to ignore the abuse back then, and I learned to ignore the blows, the shoves, the sharp-pointed objects, the ugly, defacing words. Mortal combat became the norm in that house. As a child, you only think about running away where it was safe. So I spent a lot of time alone in the forest. Depression followed me into adolescence and adulthood. I went to college, worked, and had a baby. Death at times seemed like the only alternative to my constant search for love, rescue, validation. I moved around a lot, not feeling at home anywhere for long. Then in 2005, my dad died. He came to say goodbye to me just before the dawn. I woke up to the sound of his distinct, graveling voice calling, "Serena!" I opened my eyes and saw a white, smoky light pass over my head and drift softly away. I felt an overwhelming sense of calm, and I said, "Oh, Daddy died." And I went peacefully back to sleep. His visit that morning triggered a memory of a profound experience I had as a young child, that has since helped me through the darkest times. One lovely summer day, when I was nearly 4 years old, my dearest father took me out into a wooden rowboat. He stood up, lifted me up, and threw me through the air and into the water. I sank down almost to the bottom, but not quite enough to touch it with my feet. I looked up and saw the sunlight reflecting on the surface. I crawled my way up and up to the top, emerging through to what I realized now was safety. I saw my dad staring intensely at me, not saying a word, his loving brown eyes guiding me. I swam fearlessly and naturally back to the boat. My dad's strong arms lifted me high onto the seat beside him, and we rowed back to the shore. I felt then what it meant to trust myself, my instincts, and to trust my dad, and what it felt to feel safe and to be loved. When I feel overwhelming sadness and agonizing despair, I bring back that memory of that summer day. God's love shone through my father's eyes that day. In the long, dark nights, when I feel myself sinking to the bottom, in those darkest moments, I know my instincts and my courage will get me through on top again, out of the murkiness, my feet never touching the muddy bottom. I remember my dad standing in the boat, ready to jump in if need be. I feel loved and protected. I recall his kind and wise words. Trust yourself, Serena, and know that all will be well. I look up and feel the light, my energy rising through my body, shaking off the heaviness of life into the sunshine again. I am a survivor. I rise to the light.
I'd now like to welcome Tonya June Moore to the stage, and her piece is called Joni.
I hated my imaginary friend, Joni. How messed up is that? Dude, she got on my nerves. She'd make me feel terrible until one day I sent her packing. I was about 7. No more mud pies or tree climbs for us. She had to go. I think this is the first time I ever faced the darkness in my life. When I was a little girl, my mother was this force to be reckoned with. Oh, she was a mother who had waged war on anyone who threatened her or her family. Unfortunately, she was also paranoid, schizophrenic, and manic depressive. My mother never did anything half-assed. She allowed herself to be completely manipulated by others, and this created a perfect storm that would become my childhood. She became more and more mentally and sexually abusive, and when I was 4, she looked at me dead in the eye and said, "I need you to grow up now. I need help." Little did I know that this would affect me for the rest of my life. I didn't know that every time I got help, a little more of this unbalance would be uncovered. However, I am a true warrior. I am the definition of knock me down and I will get back up. When these seemingly trivial moments where my entire life feels like it blows out of proportion, this uncontrollable spiral takes over, and I know my mom is in play. These are moments that Joni loves. Then tragedy struck. I lost my best friend and father. I divorced. I lost my beloved mother-in-law and started a new corporate career, all in about 16 months. And the tool I used to get through all of this? Work. There were times I would come home from a 16-hour day and I would feel this horrid, deep spiral of darkness coming, and I would hear Joni's voice loud and clear say, "You are just like her. Give up. Now is the time." And work became a crutch. And after 12 years of ignoring my needs and pouring myself into a container of work that didn't fit, my adrenals completely gave out. Temporary blindness, vertigo, muscle atrophy, months and months of headaches, seizures, among many other symptoms, finally woke me up and I quit. About this time, I was at a concert, and the lead singer of this European band would tell stories that had been passed down through her childhood. One of these stories was about 5 angels, one of which was coming home to have the human experience. The other 4 were to be the mother, the brother, the best friend, and the molester. "From you," said the angel, "I will learn the most." It was like my mom was speaking directly to me. I cried all night. Not that Joni darkness cry of spiraling, but this aha, I have reached a piece of sanity. I thought I had outrun the dark. I convinced myself that I had dealt with the abuse, the mood swings, the trauma. I thought that Joni died by my hand and I was victorious. Until I met someone who would make me look in the mirror at myself every day. He held me accountable for all of myself, and he helped me tear down that proverbial wall brick by stinking brick until it hurt like a bitch. Don't your friends ever tell you the truth? Don't they ever listen to you? He would say. I had done such a damn outstanding job of appearing like I had everything together, no one ever thought I needed anything. The truth is, when the darkness comes, I am completely inconsolable. Nothing or no one can pull me from this pit of despair but me, and I am not in control. My mind becomes this voracious beast killing all rational thought. It thrives on any and all negative until everything that enters my consciousness is also negative. And then it blankets me with this kind of comfort this soothing my being into believing a whole slew of inane bullshit, and it beckons me back to the safety of its dark lair, a place that Joni has made her own sacred space. I once fought. We battled so ferociously. Sometimes I wanted to die. And then that story of the concert fills my mind. And my beautiful husband's words invade my thoughts. And then I think about embracing this beast. But how to make her listen is a total test in my patience. Today, when I feel her coming, I start to talk myself out of a bad trip. I have learned that I must be alone and supported to process all that is to come. I must be in nature, get quiet, and I have to feel every single emotion that comes at me, full force, raw, and in real time. I embrace her disappointment, her fear, her angst, her rage, and I love her. And I start talking to her like she's as real as this human skin I wear, because she is that real. And I tell her about all of the wonderful things in this life. And she hates it. She can't argue, because life is beautiful. I call her out on all of her accusations, making her look at herself and see the truth. Sometimes she's on edge for days, just waiting to lash out at anyone with her bile and disgust. Once settled, I come fully home from battle. Armor battered, I am bruised but not broken. And there is my tribe, knowing fully well that war is not over, providing me with a safe haven. My tribe understands that this is a battle they cannot fight, but they must support. They help me polish my armor, knowing that each time I get to embrace this darkness, I heal a little more. Today, I think Joni was there to help me release. She gave me an outlet for this pent-up emotions that I couldn't express safely in a home with a mother that was volatile at best. Depression is a part of me, but I am not her victim. She lives in an open space with no walls, no fear, no judgment. I do not use her skills to manipulate others around me. Instead, I parade her out in the open, and I talk about her freely. She is not a badge of courage or a badge of honor. She is a reminder that I still have much to learn, and there are many more battles ahead. She keeps me on my toes, reminding me that my tribe is imperative to my survival, that living a life that is balanced and passionate is the key to my perfect version of success. I know this darkness will never be gone. That wouldn't serve my healing. My depression cannot be covered up with blankets of love and light or starved out of existence. My personal well-being must come first. I must eat well. I must have really good boundaries. I must do all of the things that are healthy for me. And this keeps the darkness responsive to my light. Then I can wield it, like Excalibur, knowing that I have the power, the most powerful of all power, for I can wield the light and the dark, ever in balance.
All right, well, it dawned on me not too long ago that 99.9% of everybody walking around, including myself, at times does not feel good enough. You think about that for a moment, and when you think about that for one moment, you don't feel so bad anymore, right? That's how I feel. This song is called Clarity. It's from the new CD that I'm going to produce this year of intimate songs. Turning out pages of hundreds of stories I've got. Releasing the past of myself and who I am not. Finally emerging as me as I've denied. Awakening feelings that it was easier to hide. Oh, clarity. Oh, clarity. 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 Showered in sunlight, everything's rearranged. Oddly scared to the core with all of this change. I am the author of my destiny. Holding the high watch, I choose to believe. Oh, clarity, yes, the blessing of clarity. Ooh, clarity, clarity, yes. Surrender to sadness and rage and falling apart, rising from ashes open and ready to start. Clarity. I harness the action of living life mindfully. I welcome what's next and breathe in more consciously. Trusting in the process of trusting myself. Falling forward into life itself. Oh, clarity. The blessing of clarity. Clarity. Clarity, yes. Clarity, yes. I've gotten clarity. Ooh. Clarity.
I want you to take a moment again to look at these courageous, brave people and know that they are people. The only difference between them and us is that they had the courage and the bravery to come up here. So please take these stories and let them help you with whatever you are dealing with. And I thank them so much for their willingness, their courage. I thank them for their joy. And I thank them for the fact that they are here. So thank you, all of you. And Megan didn't. Megan asked if she could say something more. So microphone, Megan, where you go?
You know, I look around this room, And I'm reminded of one of the gifts that my struggles and our struggles gave me, which is people who could sit with me in the pain and help me transform it into beauty. Listening does that, you know. It transforms both the teller and the listener. Long ago, we used to sit around fires and tell our stories together, and together we would own them as a tribe. Tonight, you have done just that with us. Many of you have been the tribe for our storytellers, and I want you to know how vital you have been to our recovery and unfolding. I want you to take a moment and look around you at the people to your left and the people to your right. This right here is what community looks like. Whatever shape our individual struggles and stories take, whether it's mental illness, physical illness, the loss of a loved one, we are all united by our shared experiences of both joy and sorrow. I used to ask myself the question, why are we all here? I believe the answer is for each other. Let this evening plant seeds of community. Let this night begin a conversation where we all own our stories, our brilliant, brave stories together. And I hope I can speak for all of us by saying thank you to Barbara Litrell and the Verde Valley Mental Health Coalition. Thank you for creating these conversations that are so vital to our community. And I hope that you all feel welcome to come up and talk to us afterwards and have those conversations. At least I know for me, you know, just start a conversation. And most of all, thank you, Kate Hawks, our thoughtful, kind, brave director. Kate not only supported us in learning how to perform and share our stories, she supported us as whole beings in this entire process. And that takes a very unique person. So thank you, Kate. And thank you all. Thank you for showing up tonight and being brave with us.
Oh.